January 2nd, 2025. 9:47 a.m. Beijing Standard Time. CATL's headquarters in Ningde receives a confidential market intelligence report that will reshape global battery strategy for the next decade. The document, marked internal distribution only, contains a single data point that sends shockwaves through the executive boardroom. BYD's global battery installations reached 157.9 GWh in January-October 2025, representing 62% growth year-over-year. For the first time since CATL achieved global dominance, a Chinese competitor was growing faster than the market leader. The report's final line carries implications that extend far beyond corporate rivalry. Combined Chinese manufacturers now control 69% of global EV battery production, creating the foundation for technological and economic hegemony that no Western power can challenge. 6 months earlier, Robin Zeng, CATL's founder and chairman, had dismissed BYD as a car company playing in batteries. By December 2025, BYD's 16.9% global market share and aggressive vertical integration strategy forced Zeng to acknowledge an uncomfortable truth. His company faced the first credible threat to Chinese battery supremacy since the industry's inception. The forensic analysis reveals how two Chinese giants transformed a domestic battery competition into a global empire strategy that restructured the automotive industry, created dependencies spanning 6 continents, and established China as the irreplaceable foundation of global electrification. The mathematical precision of Chinese battery dominance becomes clear through market share data that tracks the systematic displacement of Western and Asian competitors. CATL maintained 39.2% global market share in 2025, installing 464.7 GWh of batteries, a 35.7% increase from 342.5 GWh in 2024. BYD reached 16.4% global share with 194.8 GWh installed, growing 27.7% year-over-year. Together, the Chinese companies controlled 55.6% of global battery installations, with the top 6 Chinese manufacturers commanding 68.9% of the market. The concentration represents more than competitive success. It demonstrates strategic coordination to capture the critical infrastructure of the global energy transition. CATL's financial performance illustrates the scale and profitability of Chinese battery empire building. BYD's integrated approach challenges CATL's pure-play battery strategy through vertical integration that spans raw materials, battery manufacturing, and vehicle production. BYD's 2025 domestic Chinese battery installations reached 165.77 GWh, powering 3.82 million vehicles, primarily BYD's own electric cars and buses. The vertical integration creates cost advantages and supply chain control that pure battery manufacturers cannot match. When BYD controls lithium mining, battery production, and vehicle assembly, the company eliminates multiple profit margins that separate manufacturers must extract independently. The geographical expansion strategies of CATL and BYD reveal coordinated Chinese efforts to establish global battery manufacturing capabilities that circumvent trade barriers while creating permanent dependencies. CATL operates or plans manufacturing facilities in Germany, Hungary, Spain, Indonesia, and Thailand, with combined annual capacity exceeding 646 GWh, more than the total global battery capacity that existed 5 years ago. BYD's passenger vehicle factory in Hungary represents the first Chinese automaker manufacturing facility in Europe, while its $1 billion Indonesian plant becomes operational in January 2026. Chinese companies collectively invested $143 billion in foreign EV and battery ventures between 2014 and 2025, according to Rhodium Group data. The investment pattern reveals strategic prioritization of regions that provide either raw material access or market penetration opportunities. Indonesia attracted $22 billion, securing Chinese control over global nickel supply chains essential for battery production. Hungary received $18 billion, establishing a European manufacturing base that complies with local content requirements while maintaining Chinese operational control. Indonesia's strategic importance to Chinese battery empire expansion demonstrates how resource nationalism can be transformed into technological dependency. Indonesia banned the export of unprocessed nickel ore in 2014, forcing global battery manufacturers to establish domestic processing capabilities. Chinese companies responded by building integrated nickel processing and battery manufacturing operations, ultimately controlling 3/4 of Indonesian nickel refining capacity. Indonesia now provides 2/3 of global nickel supply, with Chinese companies directing production toward battery applications rather than traditional steel manufacturing. The technological competition between CATL and BYD drives innovation strategies designed to establish Chinese leadership across multiple battery chemistries and applications. CATL's multi-chemistry portfolio includes lithium iron phosphate, LFP, batteries for cost-sensitive applications, high-nickel NMC batteries for premium vehicles, sodium-ion batteries for stationary storage, and the ultra-fast charging Shunqing pack targeting 5-minute charging cycles. BYD's blade battery technology focuses on LFP chemistry optimization, achieving safety and cost advantages that enable mass-market electrification. CATL's domestic Chinese market share demonstrates the foundation that enables global expansion. The company holds 43.42% of China's overall battery market in 2025, installing 333.57 GWh domestically while powering 5.07 million vehicles. In China's lithium iron phosphate battery segment, CATL commands 37.13% market share, while achieving 70.9% dominance in the ternary battery market used for premium applications. The domestic scale provides cash flow and manufacturing experience that subsidize aggressive international pricing designed to establish market positions before competitors can respond. BYD's approach to global expansion differs from CATL's manufacturing-focused strategy by prioritizing integrated automotive operations that establish complete Chinese control over electric vehicle supply chains. BYD sold more than 130,000 vehicles outside China in November 2025 alone, nearly 4 times higher than the previous year. The rapid international vehicle sales create captive demand for BYD batteries, while establishing Chinese automotive brand presence in markets previously dominated by Japanese, German, and American manufacturers. The competitive dynamics between CATL and BYD reflect broader Chinese industrial strategy designed to achieve technological and economic dominance through domestic competition that strengthens collective Chinese capabilities. The companies compete aggressively for domestic market share while coordinating internationally to displace non-Chinese competitors. CATL supplies batteries to Tesla, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, and Volkswagen, establishing Chinese components as essential to Western automotive production. BYD's expanding vehicle sales create alternative Chinese automotive ecosystems that reduce Western automotive companies' market access over time. European automotive manufacturers face strategic dependence on Chinese battery suppliers that creates vulnerabilities extending beyond commercial relationships. CATL's German factory achieved profitability during 2024, demonstrating the company's ability to manufacture competitively within European regulatory and labor environments. The success proves that Chinese battery manufacturing superiority results from systematic technological and operational advantages, rather than simply lower labor costs or regulatory arbitrage opportunities that European policies could easily address. The raw material control strategies pursued by Chinese battery manufacturers create supply chain dependencies that extend Chinese influence throughout the global energy transition. Chinese companies control approximately 3/4 of global lithium processing capacity, despite China possessing minimal domestic lithium reserves. The processing control means that lithium mined in Australia, Chile, or Argentina must be refined in Chinese facilities before becoming battery-grade material usable by global manufacturers. CATL's strategic partnerships with global automakers demonstrate how Chinese companies establish technological dependencies that become difficult for Western companies to eliminate once established. Tesla's use of CATL batteries in Chinese manufactured vehicles creates intellectual property sharing that benefits Chinese technological development, while making Tesla dependent on Chinese manufacturing capabilities. BMW, Mercedes-Benz, and Volkswagen partnerships provide CATL with access to European automotive engineering while establishing Chinese suppliers as essential to German automotive competitiveness. The financial scale of Chinese battery empire building dwarfs Western governmental and corporate responses designed to maintain technological independence. CATL and BYD collectively generated over $50 billion in revenue during 2025, providing cash flow for research and development spending that exceeds the total budgets of Western battery development programs. The Chinese companies can sustain losses in international markets for years while establishing market positions, knowing that domestic profits provide sustainable competitive advantages. Energy storage applications represent the next frontier of Chinese battery empire expansion, with applications extending far beyond automotive markets. CATL's energy storage installations reached nearly 1/5 of total battery shipments in 2024, demonstrating how Chinese battery capabilities enable Chinese companies to capture infrastructure markets traditionally controlled by Western engineering and power generation companies. Battery energy storage systems manufactured by Chinese companies become essential components of electrical grids, creating dependencies that extend Chinese influence throughout national energy infrastructure. The technological standardization efforts pursued by CATL illustrate how Chinese companies seek to establish technical protocols that create permanent advantages for Chinese manufacturers. CATL's chocolate battery block system for battery swapping aims to establish standardized interfaces that favor CATL's modular designs while creating switching costs for automotive manufacturers that adopt alternative battery configurations. Technical standards developed by Chinese companies become global defaults when Chinese market share creates de facto adoption requirements. BYD's international expansion strategy targets emerging markets where Chinese companies can establish market positions before Western competitors recognize the strategic importance of these regions. BYD's operations in Southeast Asia, Latin America, and Africa create Chinese automotive ecosystems in markets that represent the future growth of global vehicle demand. The emerging market focus ensures Chinese companies control the foundational infrastructure of electrification in regions where Western automotive companies have limited presence. The manufacturing capacity expansions planned by CATL and BYD far exceed current global demand projections, suggesting strategic preparation for market developments that Chinese companies expect to accelerate beyond Western forecasts. CATL's planned production capacity of 646 GWh annually exceeds current global EV battery demand, indicating Chinese companies are building manufacturing capabilities designed to satisfy dramatically increased electrification adoption rates. The excess capacity provides Chinese companies with the ability to respond to demand surges while maintaining pricing discipline that prevents new competitors from achieving profitable operations. Intellectual property strategies pursued by Chinese battery manufacturers combine legitimate innovation with systematic acquisition of Western technological capabilities through joint ventures and strategic partnerships. CATL's research and development spending focuses on next-generation battery chemistries while leveraging partnerships with Western automotive companies to access complementary technologies. The combination enables Chinese companies to develop comprehensive technological capabilities that match or exceed Western research, while avoiding the lengthy development timelines that limit Western competitive responses. The geopolitical implications of Chinese battery empire dominance extend beyond commercial competition to fundamental questions about technological sovereignty and economic security. Western governments recognize that Chinese control over battery production creates dependencies comparable to previous oil dependencies. But the manufacturing scale and technological complexity required to establish alternative supply chains exceed the resources Western governments have committed to battery independence initiatives. CATL's and BYD's success demonstrates how state-directed capitalism can achieve technological dominance through patient capital allocation and strategic coordination that democratic market economies struggle to replicate. Chinese government support for battery manufacturing includes direct subsidies, preferential financing, guaranteed domestic demand, and coordinated international expansion that enables Chinese companies to sustain competitive advantages over extended time periods. Western companies operating under quarterly earnings pressures cannot match Chinese strategic patience and resource allocation flexibility. The competitive pressure between CATL and BYD drives continuous innovation and cost reduction that benefits Chinese battery industry capabilities while creating insurmountable barriers for Western competitors attempting to establish alternative supply chains. Domestic Chinese competition ensures that Chinese battery technologies advance rapidly while Chinese manufacturing costs decline continuously. Western companies attempting to compete face Chinese suppliers that improve capabilities and reduce costs faster than Western companies can develop alternative technologies or achieve comparable manufacturing scale. Regional market penetration strategies reveal how Chinese battery companies establish footholds in strategic markets while avoiding direct confrontation with Western trade restrictions. CATL Southeast Asian manufacturing facilities serve regional markets while providing alternative supply routes if Chinese exports face tariffs or restrictions. BYD's integrated automotive operations create legitimate local manufacturing that complies with domestic content requirements while establishing Chinese technological presence in protected markets. The technological trajectory of Chinese battery development targets breakthrough capabilities that would establish permanent Chinese advantages in next-generation energy storage applications. CATL's sodium-ion battery development aims to reduce dependency on lithium resources that China does not control domestically, while solid-state battery research pursues energy density improvements that would make Chinese technology superior to competing approaches. The research directions demonstrate Chinese understanding that maintaining technological leadership requires continuous innovation rather than simply defending current advantages. Battery recycling and circular economy initiatives pursued by Chinese companies establish Chinese control over end-of-life battery materials that will become increasingly important as global battery installations reach retirement age. CATL's recycling capabilities ensure that Chinese companies capture valuable materials from retired batteries, while developing expertise in battery material recovery that Western companies have neglected. The recycling competency creates additional barriers for Western companies seeking to establish independent battery supply chains. The financial sustainability of Chinese battery empire building relies on domestic market protection that provides guaranteed revenue while Chinese companies establish international market positions. China's domestic EV market provides Chinese battery manufacturers with captive demand exceeding 5 million vehicles annually, generating cash flow that subsidize international expansion designed to capture global market share. Western battery companies attempting to compete internationally lack equivalent protected domestic markets that could provide comparable financial foundations. Educational and research institution partnerships between Chinese battery companies and global universities demonstrate how Chinese companies access Western intellectual capabilities while maintaining Chinese control over commercial applications. CATL's collaborations with European research institutions provide access to Western battery research, while ensuring that commercial applications benefit Chinese manufacturing capabilities. The partnerships create one-way technological transfer that strengthens Chinese capabilities without providing Western institutions with equivalent access to Chinese industrial knowledge. The reckoning is strategic and irreversible. CATL and BYD have transformed Chinese battery manufacturing from domestic industrial policy into global technological hegemony that restructures international power relationships around Chinese capabilities. The mathematical precision of 69% global market share represents more than commercial success. It demonstrates systematic Chinese capture of the critical infrastructure that enables the global energy transition. Western responses to Chinese battery dominance arrive too late and operate at scales inadequate to challenge Chinese advantages built over 15 years of patient capital allocation and strategic coordination. European battery independence initiatives and American reshoring policies cannot overcome Chinese technological leadership and manufacturing scale achieved through domestic competition between companies operating with governmental support and strategic patience that democratic market economies cannot replicate. The autopsy is complete. The diagnosis is technological dependence designed and executed through strategic competition. CATL versus BYD represents the most successful example of how domestic competition can strengthen national technological capabilities while establishing global dominance that transforms commercial relationships into geopolitical leverage. When two Chinese companies control over half of global battery production, the global energy transition proceeds on Chinese terms using Chinese technologies manufactured under Chinese control. The only question remaining is whether Western powers can develop alternative technological capabilities before Chinese battery empire consolidation becomes irreversible, or if the future of global electrification will remain permanently dependent on decisions made in Ningda and Shenzhen.